These are so I don't know how much I've told you about the Museum of Impossible Objects. So basically, these are cards which can be used in a couple of different ways. They could either be used as writing prompts in sort of like, maybe school English classes or creative writing classes or whatever, because obviously they're quite odd. Can you see them okay?
Yeah, I can see them. I
Yeah,
can, and the small text I can read as well.
good.
So I can
So
actually do much. So effectively, you've got a museum of objects
yeah,
that are coming from all different, is it parallel kind of universes?
yeah. So there's lots. So obviously, for example, you can see the ghost jar here. So this is obviously a world in which ghosts exist.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's sort of like odd cryptozoology going on, and different religions than we have, and so on and so forth. So the other way in which they can be used, so obviously they can serve as writing prompts, either just using the pictures or maybe also using the museum labels. But one of the things that happens with the museum, although that's not a card I've got here, is there is a book in which as the exhibits arrive in the museum, the book magically records the exhibits. And the book also, it has some kind of psychic field, and what it does is it poses questions to the museum visitors. So it psychically pops questions into their heads as they wander around.
Oh, that's cool.
But it's also rumoured that the book actually rewrites the labels for the exhibits based on the answers it gets from the visitors. So you can never be
Because
quite sure whether anything's true.
yeah,
So,
that makes sense.
so
Because everything's guesswork,
the other
isn't it?
way in which the cards can be used is it's a bit. So just to give you a bit of backstory, one of the things that I find really, really compelling about speculative fiction, sort of sci-fi, fantasy, and so on, is the way in which you can use speculative fiction to explore questions about what it is to be human.
Yeah.
So, for example, one of the examples that I gave is many, many years ago when I used to watch Star Trek, the original series, when I was a kid. One of the episodes that really made a big impact on me was, oh God, what was it called? I can't remember what the episode was called now. But basically, it had the guy who played the Riddler in the original Batman in it, and he played two members of a race from a planet that the Enterprise was visiting, and they were at war.
Right.
And that they were at war with each other because they were very, very different. But in actual fact, the Enterprise, the crew on the Enterprise couldn't understand it because these people looked exactly the same to the crew on the Enterprise, except they had these like bilaterally sort of black and white faces.
Right.
And one set of people, they had white on one side and black on, so they're white on the right and black on the left, but the others had white on the left and black on the right, and they were at war because they were so different.
Why?
So obviously this was very, very thinly veiled episode that was really about racism and about
Yeah.
segregation in America at the time, and so on and so forth. So that made a real impact on me, and it's sort of like that idea that speculative fiction can be used to answer these big questions. So this is the other way in which this can be used. So, for example, again, you turn over and there are these questions, and the questions again they could just be used to do bottom-up world building to make nice stories and whatever, but they can also lead into these more serious kind of questions. So these could be used in sort of ethics classes, philosophy classes, etc., or even within a corporate setting, if you like.
Yeah.
So obviously this one, the bride, there's obviously stuff to be asked there about the position of women in society. The ghost jar, I'll just turn over the ghost. I'm going to have to pull that over, and I'm not going to be able to turn it over. Oh, Sam.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Yeah.
So who's got this on the chart? That's an interesting question. Where does it need to get explanations? Yeah, they're good kind of opening questions that can really sort of drum up some really interesting
So obviously
conversation.
there's quite a lot there potentially to get into about crime and punishment, who makes the rules, how do they get into the position where they're the ones that make the rules, how do rules disproportionately affect different people, you know, what is considered sentient, for example.
So,
this is the way that
have you already got this one on Deckable?
Yeah.
So the when you run the Kickstarter campaign, then I'm assuming that's for creating a physical deck.
Yeah.
Will there be some kind of level within that where they'll be able to access your Deckable deck?
Potentially.
Because or it might even be like certain levels of discount codes to access the Deckable version or something to be able to create more levels. I don't know.
Yeah, potential. So the levels I've got going on at the moment, I've got a kind of support only level. Everybody does that, don't they? I have got PDF only level, so basically they would be provided with the deck as a PDF. Deck and PDF, because obviously the PDF, if you buy the deck, the PDF comes with it. Then there's kind of the educational sort of levels, if you like. So you can get the deck and PDF, but also an additional sort of facilitator's guide would be the next level. And then I've got sort of like super teachers pack, if you like, which includes the deck, in fact, as many decks as you want. The teacher's guide or the facilitator guide PDF, which is basically going to contain, for every card, there'll be a page for every card, which will basically contain lots of additional reading, sort of, you know, where the inspirations came from for the particular card, other places to look, cultural references, sort of news and current affairs references that go with it, and so on and so forth. So basically there'll be kind of lesson plans, if you like, that or something really that will be based around that card. And then the super duper teachers pack, which is basically all of that, but also a big kind of wall poster, which on one side just has pictures of all of the cards, and on the other side has a kind of museum guide, which have additional kind of ideas for activities and stuff.
Awesome.
And what else have I got? Oh yeah, the book column.
Where have the images come from?
I made them in Midjourney.
Oh, cool.
So weirdly, the images came first, and the images came out of me just fiddling around with Midjourney when I first found out about it. And some of them were so weird, some of the images that came out, and I kind of made up stories about the images, and that the cards grew out of that.
That makes sense. Did you say Midjourney? I don't know it, so
yeah, Midjourney's it's AI image creator.
I might have a look at that. A little play with it. That's really cool. Your book column. Unsatisfying knowing. It is interesting, isn't it? You can sort of create an image and then kind of extrapolate backwards from it.
Yeah.
What might be the challenging? Yeah, it can generate a good conversation.
Yeah. And obviously underlying it all, with it being a museum, there's all of those conversations about, you know, what should and shouldn't be exhibited. So for example, one of the exhibits is a stuffed fairy. And it's just like, who the hell would go around capturing, killing and stuffing a fairy?
Yeah.
You know, and should the remains of sentient creatures be exhibited in museums? So there's all those conversations about colonialism and stealing stuff and putting it in museums.
I was just thinking the beauty of this card deck is that it can effectively have an endless amount of additional packs, can't it?
Yeah, so there are some other packs in development at the moment, so that again, I haven't got cards here in this thing that because I just haven't changed the aspect ratio of them. But in terms of sort of world building, there are two main other sentient species, which become obvious through seeing what cards are in there. So fairies exist, fae folk exist, and they are sort of trying to share the planet with us. So one of the exhibits, for example, is a prehistoric, an X-ray of a prehistoric egg, which was originally thought to be a dinosaur egg. But when it was X-rayed, it was found out it contained an embryonic pixie. And so the story behind that is that was used as evidence in the 1989 Planet Ownership Summit, where, because basically the Fae are not very pleased about the way we've been treating the planet. And so there's all that sort of stuff.
That's perfectly understandable.
Yeah. So there's the Fae. They are another sentient species, but also crows. So crows, there's quite a lot of exhibits relating to crows and their religion. Crows practice a shamanic religion. So there's all that sort of stuff going on. So one of the other decks that's in development at the moment is, so obviously this one's pretty general in terms of the questions, but I thought it was quite good to have different decks that maybe have a more specific focus. So the next deck that I'm going to be working on is the Fae Institute of Unnatural History. So that's going to have a big focus on sustainability and ecosystems.
Are you going to, so this one is this one effectively within the human realm, and the artifacts are coming into the human realm, and then the other one that you're talking about are in the Fae realm?
So again, there are various sort of, so that all of the decks so I've got quite a few ideas for different decks, but they all kind of focus on the idea of them being sort of like knowledge institutions. So there's museums and libraries and research institutes and so on and so forth. But yes, this is kind of in the human realm. So a lot of the stuff in here has been taken from other realms and ended up. So there's some goblin fruit, for example, that was taken from a goblin market. There's various other bits and pieces, but yeah, this is something that the humans have taken.
And then if you do something within the other realms, are you going to be placing kind of human-made objects in there as well?
So one of the exhibits in this one is an actual empty case, and the reason it's empty is because the exhibit's on loan to the Fae Institute of Human Studies.
Brilliant.
So it's an exhibit on money. So then that, if I then create, the cards for the Fae Institute of Humanity Studies, I can have that exhibit in there and ask some questions about money.
Awesome. I like it. So you're building quite a big world with this, aren't you? Potentially.
Yeah. I mean, it is basically bottom-up world building. That's what it is. Because with any one of the cards, you could do a bottom-up world building. So, like, take the bottle beetle, for example. Here's an object. Here's a thing that exists in this world. What can we take from that? What, if this thing exists, what implications does that have? What else exists? What does the world look like?
Yeah. It can create some really stimulating conversations.
Yeah.
I like it. It's cool.
Thank you.
Yeah, you have to make